Welcome everybody. It's 3 o'clock on my computer. And I see lots of people are joining. So we're just going to get started very slowly. Welcome. My name is Louise Knowles. I'm the Deputy Director for the Innovation Accelerator and Regulatory Science team at the MHRA. And welcome to this webinar to talk a bit about the Innovative Licensing and Access Pathway, ILAP. We're going to be hopefully providing you with a bit of information today on the back of the publication of the details earlier this year on the new pathway. We'll be hearing from a number of the partners, and there'll be opportunities for questions afterwards. What I'm just going to do, just to highlight, we are recording the session. And hopefully you will have seen that's happening. So just a reminder of where we're at. So ILAP, so the only end-to-end access pathway where the developer can work collaboratively with the national health system, the regulator and health technology assessment bodies from the early ages of clinical development, really designed to try and speed up that end-to-end pathway of from early development through to access. As I've highlighted, it's very much a partnership. The list of the partners are there, and I'm going to ask my colleagues. We've got colleagues from each of the partners represented today. So myself from the MHRA, supported by my colleagues Lucy and Mikey and Laura and Erica. So I'm going to just ask my colleagues who are on today just to introduce themselves and where they're from. So Andy, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you, Louise. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Andrew Champion. I'm the Programme Director at the All Wales Therapeutics and Toxicology Centre.
Thank you. Jack.
Thanks, Louise. Jack Turner, Deputy Director for Medicines Access at NHS England.
Thank you. And Faye?
Good afternoon. I'm Faye McCracken, Associate Director for NICE Advice Services.
And Pauline?
Hi, I'm Pauline McGuire. I'm one of the Principal Pharmacists at Scottish Medicines Consortium.
Thank you. And we also have Yvonne as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Yvonne Semple. I'm the Chief Pharmaceutical Advisor at Scottish Medicines Consortium. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all. And I've got lots of participants, lots of people joining. So thank you for your interest in today. So if I just go quickly onto the agenda for the day, we've got quite a lot to get through. So welcome introductions. We're going to move into then a bit of a presentation. So as I say, this first part will be recorded, introduction to the new ILAP and a bit of details about what's on offer. We'll then go into a Q&A session. You should have, as part of your joining instructions, that will all be handled through a thing called Slido, which you may or may not have used before. Links to that should have been highlighted in your invite to this part of your registration to this event. So you can, of course, submit questions as we're going through, but there'll also be questions at the end, and we'll talk a bit more detail about how to do that. We can always put information in the chat, so we'll do that in terms of the, oh yes, Laura has very kindly put information of how to access Slido and the event code, so you can submit your questions. So we'll cover that in a bit more detail. As I say, we're going to be recording this first part of the webinar before we get to Q&A. That will be shared in the coming weeks, so you'll get an email by the time that is ready. So we'll cover that bit later. So I'm going to move quickly on because we don't have an awful lot of time, and I want to try and make sure we've got as much time for questions at the end. Is hand over to Jack to talk about an introduction to the new ILAP. So Jack, over to you.
Thanks very much, Louise, and thank you everybody for joining this afternoon. What is an exciting point in the milestone around ILAP and the new ambition. So the reason I'm talking through what the new service is not particularly because anybody wants to hear what I say as an individual, but more because this is a true collaboration between all of us as partners across the healthcare system. And I think that's what's really exciting about this. ILAP is now entering what really does feel like a new era, and actually offering some focus on where do we get the most transformative new medicines coming in, and how do we make sure those go to patients as quickly as possible and reach patient bedside at pace and scale. Under that, we have NHS England, Scotland and Wales coming on board as full partners for the launch. Northern Ireland are intending to join in the coming months. So it really is a true UK-wide service. And that's what makes this really exciting, is when you take that together, we not only accelerate time to access in terms of having a speedier regulatory appraisal, a speedier health technology assessment, but also we can engage with companies to think about operational readiness for the healthcare service and make sure that we get that system prepared where the treatments are going to have the biggest and maximal patient effect possible. And collaboratively, we offer, as we were just saying, a single integrated platform for sustained collaborative working between pharmaceutical developers and the ILAP partners. So really great to be part of this initiative moving forwards. Can I have the next slide, please? So when we were considering as the NHS joining the ILAP refresh, we collectively as partners looked in quite a lot of detail about some of the lessons from ILAP 1, following the Pro-Innovation Regulation Technologies Review for Life Sciences, which pulled out a few things like making sure there was robust governance around the ILAP procedure, making sure that was more selective criteria so that the capacity was well managed through the ILAP process, and that we were prioritizing the truly innovative medicines that can really deliver a step change in care and treatment outcomes, and ensuring that speed and efficiency of ILAP is really prioritized by looking for opportunities to work in parallel across multiple agencies and work proactively across the access pathway, really focusing on how can we develop a frictionless end-to-end access pathway for high priority innovations. Can we move on to the next slide? So what are the key improvements? What's new? One of the things which seems to be highlighted in an NHS Blue is the NHS as core partners. As I spoke about initially a minute ago, the rationale for that is so that we don't just look at accelerating regulation and HTA timelines, but making sure we are really linking in end to end and thinking about what changes might be needed in care pathways for these innovations to really adopt and prepare the service at pace and scale. We're also looking at much more selective entry criteria for ILAP products. So there'll be a much more prioritized selection of products that are entered into the pathway. One of the big benefits of that is that we can collectively offer a better quality and more bespoke service for products and companies that get accepted into ILAP. We're also introducing a simpler roadmap and more predictable timelines for products that go into ILAP. So at the point of confirmation onto entry, developers will be offered a meeting with the ILAP partners to develop what's called a target development profile, or TDP. That really serves to establish a collaborative platform for ILAP partners to review a product's development. And the aim there is to streamline, align, and coordinate evidence generation and evaluation, whilst also identifying key implementation and service delivery issues. And we use that not just as a kind of one-off roadmap, it's a living document that will be maintained and updated as the treatment progresses through the late stage clinical trial. Access to exclusive services will also be a key improvement that's included. So two of particular note that are exclusive to ILAP. One is joint scientific advice, so advice on evidence generation plans for a product from both a regulatory and a HTA perspective. And something called the ILAP Access Forum, which is an exclusive offer to products that get selected into ILAP that aims to promote proactive understanding of market access approaches before a product gets into a HTA process that will help to optimize the route for patient access. Now, crucially, it's not just about HTA challenges. NHS partners will also be involved in those conversations to look at the need for commercial flexibilities around reimbursement, and most critically, service delivery implications as well. A third service that I would flag, because I think it is really novel, is ILAP products will also have access via the NIHR Research Delivery Network to England's National Research Delivery Infrastructure, which really goes a long way to reduce the time and effort needed to plan, place, set up, and deliver clinical trials, which, given that we are now looking at treatments that are not in a late stage confirmatory trial, becomes a really interesting proposition. Prioritized scheduling will also be a key improvement that's offered through the relaunched ILAP. So when you enter into ILAP, you're granted something called a priority scheduling pass. This enables products with an innovation passport to be prioritized by ILAP partners in their work schedules. So when we do that, we talk about things like MHRA scientific advice, pre-submission meetings, the NICE advice service, and for the SMC prioritization for evaluation and potential eligibility for interim acceptance. And you'll note as well from the guidelines that have been published that we are expanding the scope of ILAP to accelerate access to drug device combinations. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I appreciate that there's a lot to go through in there. I think overall, the point I want to emphasize is that by focusing on early stage clinical development, we are collectively aiming to reduce the time to market for these innovative treatments while supporting developers with guidance and integrated access to regulatory, HTA and healthcare system partners. And it is our hope that this refreshed approach will create a clearer pathway for the most innovative medicines. If I could have the next slide, please. So taken together, what some of these new proposals bring to life is a unique offering of being a truly end-to-end frictionless access pathway that is system-wide. We will be prioritizing the most transformative treatments and do that by focusing on early stage clinical development. Now, that's exciting not just because it could accelerate access, but also because it can link up the system delivery. It also allows us to do things like work with companies to shape not just the late stage clinical trial, but also think about how those treatments will be used in routine practice when they come to market earlier to make these things as easy and frictionless to adopt for frontline staff as possible. Can I have the next slide, please? And of course, more benefits for developers will be included as well. I've touched on some of these as I've gone through what we've talked about before, but what we're hoping to provide is a really unique opportunity for medicines developers to engage with the UK medicine regulator, HTA bodies, and the National Health Service. The refreshed approach aims to create a clearer pathway for innovative medicines. To do this, we're including support from a dedicated point of contact to help coordinate across the pathway and navigate access as the product progresses. There'll be a continuous review of the services that we're offering under the program to make sure that we're constantly evolving ILAP to be fit for purpose. And that we hope that by providing medicine developers with joined up, coordinated and tailored guidance from all of us as partners, from the early stages of clinical development right the way through, the ILAP scheme will accelerate time to market for these products, which includes the drug device combinations. Can I have the next slide, please? So I mentioned, Louise, do you want me to pass to you?
Yeah, I think I'm happy to cover this one, Jack. Thank you.
Sure.
And thanks for that. Yeah, so I was just going to very quickly cover the new criteria. I can just to note very quickly, I can see people are putting questions in the chat. Could I ask that questions go onto the Slido, because we won't be answering questions in the chat. So if you do have questions, please use the Slido links that the team shared in the chat. So I'm not going to read through these in lots of detail. I'm assuming that most people have... sorry, I'm hearing that my line is very crackly. Can you hear me okay, people? Yep. Okay.
Sorry, Louise, it's not great. I don't know if you want me to cover these ones.
Yeah, if you're happy
to. You can. That's a shame. Your mic was totally fine at the start. I don't. Is my audio okay for everybody then? Yeah. Okay, that's great. So yeah, so I could just quickly, as Louise said, we won't go into this in any detail, but this is just to share the new eligibility criteria to make sure it's really clear what medicines we're looking for ILAP to be for. Sorry, I introduced myself at the start for it, but for anybody who was maybe a bit late in joining, I'm Polly Maguire, one of the principal pharmacists at Scottish Medicines Consortium. So these are the eligibility criteria we're going to use to make sure we're identifying the most innovative medicines and to ensure that the medicines that can benefit from the TDP and from the services we're providing. And then if we go into the next slide as well, please. These are the selection criteria. So this is where we're really going to focus in on how we identify the different medicines and prioritise what really will be of value to the NHS patients, and these are the medicines that are targeting conditions that are life-threatening, seriously debilitating, but also that the product is innovative and transformative, and we want to see that these products have the potential to offer a step change in the management of the indication. You sound okay now, Louise? Do you want to come in?
Thank you.
You'd like to add on
Do I sound better now that I've got my headphones in?
Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you for taking the reins on that. So yeah, absolutely. So and I just wanted to highlight as well with the selection criteria. Obviously, again, you'll have the details on the website. As it says on the website, obviously, what is for products that meet the eligibility criteria, they will be assessed against these selection criteria. And entry to ILAP will be for products that are considered to demonstrate compelling evidence against all three of these criteria. And that's very much based on what's in the application form and a consensus decision across all the partners. Obviously, I know there's some questions that the application form does guide you through how to address each of the criteria and the questions to address each of those. And that when it goes live at the end of March does have a lot more detail about the sorts of things that we might be looking for to help applicants when they apply. So please do look out for that and do read the application form when it's live. So I think that was it from us on criteria. I think, Pauline, we're handing over to you now anyway to talk about the what's on offer in a bit more detail.
That's great. Thanks, Louise. So yes, I've been involved in ILAP for a number of years now, so I'm pleased to be able to share some further details about the refreshed ILAP with you. So as you've heard, ILAP aims to bring transformative new medicines to patients sooner. So we're aiming to reduce the end-to-end timeline for product development, regulatory approval, health technology assessment, and adoption of new technologies. So I'm going to attempt to summarise in practical terms how we, so the regulator, the HTA bodies and the NHS, intend to support developers in accelerating patient access to the products by describing what services are on offer in the new ILAP and how they'll all work together. So at the heart of ILAP is the Target Development Profile, known as the TDP. So this is a unique collaborative platform where ILAP partners review a product's development and provide tailored advice and support. So by taking an integrated system-wide approach, the TDP helps create a UK-specific development roadmap, facilitating early patient access and improving navigation through complex regulatory and market access systems. So I'll cover this a bit more in the next slide. So alongside the TDP are the ILAP services. So these are including exclusive offerings only available within ILAP, and they're designed to drive efficiencies in the product's development programme. So together, the TDP and the ILAP services will form a comprehensive support system, streamlining the journey from clinical development, market access, and health system adoption to patient access. So next slide, please. So I'm going to describe what the TDP is and how it works. Next slide, please. So once a product is awarded an innovation passport, meeting the criteria that we had described there previously, the developer will complete a submission form designed to provide a holistic overview of the product's regulatory, development and market access strategies, including plans for patient and public involvement. The emphasis is on outlining future development plans. So next, the developer will be invited to a kick-off meeting with all the ILAP partners. The primary objective of this meeting is to establish a shared understanding of the product's development plans and identifying potential barriers to patient access. Through collaborative discussion, partners can highlight additional opportunities and risks, enhancing awareness of system-wide requirements. Following this, a TDP readout letter is provided to the developer, consisting of system-wide joined-up guidance and actionable recommendations, supporting the creation of a UK-specific developmental roadmap for delivering early access to patients. Additionally, the readout letter includes tailored recommendations on which ILAP services to use, when, why and how, further supporting clinical development, market access and health system adoption. So next slide, please. So the first part of ILAP services is a focus on the clinical development support. Next slide, please. So the ILAP will support developers in understanding and generating evidence required for provision of adequate data for benefit risk assessment at the time of marketing, authorisation award and health technology assessment. So unique to ILAP will be the priority scheduling pass that Jack had mentioned. So the innovation passport holders will be prioritised in ILAP partners' work schedules, enabling timely interaction and delivery of services when they're needed the most. And then there's a variety of the services that can be prioritised. So that includes MHRA scientific advice, and the early scientific advice helps development plans and reduce the risk of costly delays and rejection during the approval process. And there'll be 2 of these passes available. So pre-submission meetings will help clarify regulatory routes as well as their requirements, providing developers with the means to understand how the process of compiling and submitting applications with supporting evidence applies for their product. So as Jack has mentioned, the joint scientific advice that's quite, I guess we're quite proud of within ILAP, that will be available, and that consists of advice from regulatory and UKHT perspective. So it's delivered by NICE in partnership with AWTTC, MHRA and SMC, and it brings in clinical and patient expertise. And of course, as alluded to before, the TDP at the heart of this aims to streamline, align and coordinate evidence generation alongside the developmental roadmap. So the support could potentially reduce delays and barriers in product development, regulatory assessment and the market access journey. So on to the next slide. So to generate the required evidence, it's essential to conduct clinical trials and investigations effectively, which can be challenging, as we're aware. So the innovation passport holders will have access to the England's national research delivery infrastructure, as well as UK-wide preeminent real-world research service supporting interventional research. So the innovation passport holders have access to prioritise access to NIHR Study Support Service and the Clinical Practice Research Data Link, and also the NIHR Study Support Service and Active National Delivery Service, which is due to be released later this year, will support the study feasibility, setup, recruitment, delivery and monitoring. So we've also we'll mention there about the CPRD, the Clinical Practice Research Data Link, that collects anonymised patient data across the UK, so that can grant access to a potential pool of over 18 million patients, bolstering and potentially speeding up recruitment using the CPDR print service. So in short, this support could potentially reduce the time and effort needed to plan, place, set up and deliver clinical trials. So next slide, please. So I'm now going to describe some of the offers that are available to support market access. So that's next, thank you. So as we'd mentioned, there's also priorities scheduling options available here within market access. And then one of the other things that we mentioned as well is the exclusive ILAP access forum. So this brings together the 3 HT bodies, NHS clinical and commercial access representatives, and other expertise as appropriate, so including, for example, patient expertise in rare diseases. So the Access Forum aims to promote understanding of market access approaches and provides an opportunity for developers in which feedback from system stakeholders can be built into an ongoing market access strategy. So again, another strong offer from within ILAP. And then on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So finally, I will summarise what's available under the heading of health system adoption. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, the NHS have brought into the Access Forum. So the Access Forum is an opportunity to support developers when considering health system adoption. But there will be other opportunities to engage with NHS partners, so NHS England and representatives from NHS in Scotland and Wales, from the early stages of clinical development to inform operational planning and system preparedness for the potential introduction of medicines into standard patient care across the UK. So some of the examples that this will include is providing advice and guidance on NHS access, facilitating engagement with appropriate clinical and commissioning expertise to support the development of a UK-wide adoption strategy, and also be looking at monitoring and evaluating the uptake of ILAP products across the NHS. So also to mention that these services will be provided on the underlying assumption that products within ILAP will achieve marketing authorisation and a positive HTA decision. So I hope that's provided a useful summary of the TDP and ILAP services, and I will now pass you back to Louise. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. And so hopefully I'm now clear. So I just wanted to, obviously we've been through quite a lot there. I know there's a lot on the website. And so what we've tried to do here, so we wanted to give you a bit of a schematic, just an illustration, if you like, of how this sort of all tries to come together. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So I want to caveat that this is very much just illustrative. It says time across the top. This is not a kind of to scale or anything like that, but it is just very much to try and indicate, what the scenario can look like and where we think the ILAP approach will help. So, your scenario might be, yes, you've had your clinical trial approved. You then start sites set up and contracting and set up. You start doing your clinical trial recruitment, but for reasons you're not quite hitting your time to target on clinical trials. So you have to amend your clinical trials. You have to come back to the MHRA for a substantial amendment. You then go back to do more recruitment. There's obviously the usual follow-up and readout. We then start the market authorization application, a review of that. And then slightly later, although there's looking at the health technology assessment and then at the health system preparedness side. So that very much with the ILAP pathway, what we're talking about here is about getting early advice. So the joint scientific advice, for example, but also the support from NIHR. So that site contracting and setup can start much earlier, potentially before you've actually got your clinical trial application approved. Your recruitment should be much smoother because it's been optimized to recruit very quickly. With the access forum, we can then move very quickly from that into the market authorization application and the health technology assessment with reduced numbers of delays because we've really understood that real mutual understanding up front what's needed. So those evidence generation has been thought about really early, and really importantly, a much longer, and let's call it a landing strip, if you like, around NHS preparedness. So that process can start a lot sooner, really ensuring that when we get to the stage of licensing, HTA guidance or advice, it can be very swiftly then moving through into the NHS adoption piece. So it's just a schematic. It's just there to try and highlight the potential of bringing things together and doing more things in parallel with much more longer lead-in times to prepare and make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. Thank you very much. So I think in that case, we've been through the slides now, but I want to say thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you to all my colleagues from the ILAP partners for helping and supporting, and thank you for bearing with my crackly line today. And as I say, we're really excited about ILAP and the future, and I think hopefully you can see it's a really exciting opportunity, and we're all here to benefit patients at the end of the day. So thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. And I look forward very much to seeing the application going live and seeing the first round of products coming through. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.